Hi friends, this is Pradeep once again with a new video on Excel. In this video we are going to talk about how do we count a word which repeats in a sentence. That means here we have certain words which are highlighted in bold color. These words repeat more than once in a sentence and my requirement is just to count those words. In order to understand that solution, which is not a simple solution, it is a very complicated solution which includes the array function, which includes the function like sum, if, frequency, if error, search and indirect length. A lot of functions are involved in this to count these words. I'm not sure if there is any other simpler method available than what I have done, but this is what I have come up with. Now, this video that I'm creating right now is going to be a series of 2 to 3 videos, and in the last and final video I'm going to talk about how to use this function. But before I upload that video, if you understand the solution given in this formula, well and good. Otherwise, you need to wait till I come up with a new video which explains the entire procedure, how to use this formula and how does this formula work. And here, this is the first video in a step closer to solving this particular problem. In this first video, we are going to learn how do we count different duplicates in a given array. So here we are going to talk about a frequency function. So here I have created one simple example on how do we count duplicate values within a given range of value. Or in this first example, let's take this data set that we have in the first column, which has got all the numbers, and this is a duplicate column. So here I just want to find out how many duplicates or duplicate values are available in this entire range. Now here I'm going to use a very simple and very renowned function which is called as countif. With the help of countif, I'm going to find out how many times does this 164 appear in this entire range. And in order to do that, I'll use a simple function which is equal to countif. Now here I'll select the range. Now here the range is the entire range. So I'll select the cell and I press Ctrl Shift down. In order to come back to the active cell, the cell where I'm writing the formula, I'll use a shortcut Ctrl F. This is a very good shortcut which most of the people do not know how to come back to the active cell while editing a formula. So that shortcut is Control and backspace. You have to hit together simultaneously. After coming back to that cell, I'll freeze it by pressing F4. I'll press $sign. I'll put all the $sign. Now, like I said, I want to count this 164 in the entire range. So I've already selected that range, and in order to count that particular value, I'll select that value and I press enter. Now after pressing enter, I see that it is 1. That means 164 is not duplicate within the entire range. It appears only once. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to double click on it, and you will see that it has given me the list of all the counts. Now here 1 means these are all unique values. These do not repeat. So let's say I do a filter. So I select all and I click on 1, and you will see that there are 37 unique values. These are all appears only once in this entire range. But if I select 2 instead of 1, that means these are all values which are duplicate and appears more than once, that is twice. And similarly, if I select 3, that means these are the values which appears 3 times within the entire range. So you can see that this 200, it appears once, twice, and this is the 3rd time, that is thrice. The problem with this approach is, let's take an example. I filter only unique value. Now when I filter unique value, you will see that I have got all the values which appears only once. But to my surprise, here I am not able to find 200. Although 200 is definitely a duplicate value, but I do not consider all the occurrences of 200 as duplicate. I just need the first occurrence to be considered as unique, and the rest of the occurrences can be considered as duplicate. I want to include 200, the first occurrence of 200 only once, and then remove all the rest of the occurrences. So in order to solve this problem, I am again going to use one more countif function, but there's a different approach that I'm going to use here. I'm again going to use countif function That means I want to count this within the entire range. But here I'll select in the range field, I'll select A8 colon A8 comma A8. Now here I have selected A8 for the entire formula. Now of course if I press enter, it is not going to find out duplicate and uniques. It is going to give me 1. But here, like I said, I'm going to follow a different approach. So here I am going to freeze this first A8. Generally what do? We freeze this entire range. But here I'm not going to freeze the entire range. I'm just going to freeze the first A8, and that too I'm going to press F. For that I'm going to press F4 to freeze it, and now I'll press enter. Now after pressing enter, I see that this 164 appears only once in this range. But if I drag it down, see here 198, here it says that it appears twice, but in my case it appears only once, because in this entire range, in this blue selected area, 198 appears only once. So if I drag this down, you will notice that the range that I have selected A8 colon A8, that keeps on increasing. So guys, I want you to focus on this blue area. It keeps on increasing. So now see here, if I talk about different ranges, it keeps on increasing. So let's focus on this particular area. Here 104 within this range appears only once. It does not appear twice. But if I go slightly down, here I see that 104 appears twice. This 104 appears twice. That means for the first occurrence I've got only 1, but for the second occurrence I have got the number as 2. And likewise this entire range keeps on expanding, and I get to see different numbers. Now our problem was, I want that 200 and the number similar to that, which appears more than 1, to be considered as unique for the very first occurrences, and for the rest of the occurrences it should be removed from the filter. So let's compare both the filters once again. If I use only one, here I get 37 records which are unique. Now let me clear this filter and let me put a filter on this. Now here I'm going to filter only unique values, and now you will see that unique count has increased to 64. That means, let me check if 200 appears here. Here of course 200 appears, and that means it has considered the first occurrences of every duplicate value as unique, and for the rest of the occurrences it has removed them. So similarly, if I want to find out the numbers that appears twice, you can see that these are the numbers which appears twice. So 200 appears twice as well as thrice, so it will feature in all the three filters. So if I filter 3, you will see that 200 appears here as well. So these are the numbers which appears 3 times, and there were other examples that we have already done. Now here the last function that I am most interested in order to solve the count word in a sentence problem, and that is a frequency problem. Now a frequency function is a function which helps you to find out a duplicate within a given range. Now here what I need to do is, first of all, this is going to be an array function that we are going to use here. So I need to first select the entire range. So I go to the last cell and I press Ctrl Shift up and I select the entire range. Now here what I'm going to do is, I'm going to write a function that is frequency. So as discussed, I'm going to use the function frequency. So I write frequency. Now here there are two options, which is data array and binary array. So what I'm going to do now is, I'm going to use data array. I'll select here, I click here, I press Ctrl Shift up, and now here I'll select the entire range, and this data array is going to be selected twice for both data array as well as binary array. So I will click here and I'll press Ctrl Shift up twice. So people note here that I have selected the same range for both by data array as well as binary array. Now when we write this formula, after writing this formula, we have to enter this formula as an array function. So in order to enter this function as an array, we have to press Ctrl Shift Enter. Now you will see I have got some 1s, 0s, 2s and 3s. Now whichever number where you have seen the count is unique, the first occurrence of every number. Now let's take an example. Here in front of 200 I see 3, but if I go next, this is again 200 which shows 0. Here again if I go down somewhere here, you will see the third occurrence of 200, again it shows 0. So in the first occurrence it will give you the count within the entire range, and if that number appears more than once, that means it is only going to give you 0. So that is the property of frequency function. You will see once again, what have I done? I have written equal to frequency, and within the data array and binary array I have used the same set of values, and I have entered this function as an array function by pressing Ctrl Shift and Enter. You can identify an array function by looking into these curly braces, right? So using this frequency function, that helps me to determine unique values as well as duplicate values. Now just to check if this gives us the correct answer, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to uncheck 0. Like I said, it will display 0 in front of all the occurrences which appears after the first occurrence. So I do not need all zeros, I just need 1s, 2s and 3s, and when I click OK, it should give me 64 records, and it has given me 64 records. That means it is giving me unique records. So this is how frequency function works. The people, those who are more interested on frequency function, let me explain this with one more example. How does this frequency function work? Now here what I want to do is I want to find out how many values appear between 100 to 110 in this range. There are how many values which are available between 110 to 120, 120 to 130. Now it does not mean that this has to be equally distributed range. That means it should not be like 100 to 210 or the difference of 10 across the range. I can define any range, like if this is 110, I can make it 115 also. That is my choice. Now how do we use this function? Let's take an example here. Since this is going to be an array function, once again I select the entire range and I use equal to frequency. Now here when I select frequency function, here I have data array. Now my data array is this entire range, so I select the entire range. Again Control backspace, comma. Now the second thing that I have is binary array. Now in binary array I'll select this entire range, right? After selecting both the ranges properly, I'll again press Ctrl Shift and Enter. Now you will see that within the entire range I've got only one value which falls between 100 to 200. I'm sorry, it's not like that. I have only one value which is 100. There are 11 values which falls between 100 to 110. There are 10 values which falls between 110 to 120, and so on, right? So this is how this value works. So people, you will find the values that are found out by frequency function falls within this range which I have defined here. So this is how these ranges are defined, and you can see that all the values are coming out as correct values. This explains how this function works. I hope all of you have understood how this frequency function works. I'll just request you to wait and watch for the next video, which I'm going to upload soon. Thank you very much.